we'll get started to be mindful of everyone's time. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Pat Turnbull is president of Workplace ICX, a consultancy focusing on workplace management as a key strategy for amplifying human performance and accelerating business results. If you ladies could just sign in, please, that'd be great. Thanks. Prior to her stint at WPIQX, Pat was president of Kahan International, a mid-sized commercial interiors workplace strategy company, tripling its revenues and profitability during her tenure. Pat's clients have included William Blair, Motorola, Northwestern University, U.S. Cellular, GE, just to name a few. She earned her master's degree in business and organizational skills from UCLA. She is USGBC Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design Accredited Professional, which also stands for LEAD AP, and is a fellow of the International Facilities Management Association, where I'm the current chapter president of Chicago. IFMA, a fellow is the highest level that you can go to that Pat has achieved, so she has been a mentor to me and has been a very dear friend. Pat has a son named Andrew and loves a variety of outdoor activities. So without further ado, please help me to welcome my colleague, IFMA friend, and dear friend, Pat Turnbull.
There you go. Well, gosh, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here and be with such an illustrious group. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll stay warm in this building versus being outside in the freezing cold. I'm a little bit tethered to the keyboard here because of just the way that the connectivity is, but I was really lucky in my early career because surprisingly, my husband and I moved to Cleveland, Ohio from Southern California. A very unlikely good move, but I was the trailing spouse. It's a promotion for him and a transfer. And I worked for a Fortune 100 company in LA. And when we moved to Cleveland, I thought, well, this is an opportunity to think about things differently and think about my career path and, and what the heck am I going to do in Cleveland? So when I got there, I kind of took a step back and said, what would Nirvana look like? And it was something like this. This was, many years ago. Okay, well, I want to be in marketing because I'm, passionate about that. And I want to be in the built environment. I want to be somewhere between design and construction because in addition to the business degree, I had studied interiors at UCLA. And I want it to be a small division of a large company because I think there's better resources, and I wanted to be able to learn and wear a lot of hats. And if it was international, an international company, that would be the cherry on the cake. So I got to Cleveland. I got the Crane's Book of Lists. That's the way that we did it back then. Got the Crane's Book of Lists and looked up, what the potential companies might be. And I found the one that I thought would be the best match. And I cold called them and met with a VP of sales and marketing and explained myself, and he said, that's great, but we're not hiring, and we don't have any marketing jobs here. They're all in Strasbourg, France. Stepped back, started to circle the wagons, found out who the general manager was, made an appointment to see him, went through the same thing, not hiring, don't have any jobs, met with human resources, met with IT, met with manufacturing, met with anybody, because I kept on saying to them, no, you don't understand. I am perfect for your company. What I do and what my passions are perfect, and I'm what you need. Well, make a long story short, 8 weeks and 6 interviews later, they created a position for me, and I had my marketing job at my perfect company, my Nirvana. So the other interesting thing about that job, it kind of set me on a path for the rest of my career. I mean, flash forward 20 years later, I was the president of a mid-sized company here in Chicago that basically was in the workplace strategy and interiors and built environment business. So it was a great way to begin to kind of think. It was great for me to kind of frame up what nirvana looked like, and then this path really worked. The other really interesting thing was that there were these themes that I got to build as the marketing director there. And these have been themes that have lasted through every single job that I've had as I've moved through my career. And it was around the product being sustainable and reusable, and around adaptability, and really being people-centric in terms of what do we, if the people are the most important asset in a company, what can we do to move the needle on the people factor? So adaptability and great design, productivity, and these were really fantastic gifts for me, throughout my career path. So I kind of frame up and look at myself now, and I say, there's me, Inc. So all the decisions that you make, every career move that you make, every step you take, the friends that you have, the clubs you join, the sessions that you go to, the volunteer work that you do, all begin to add up to that something that is uniquely you. So when I look at sort of my life, I call it a portfolio life, because it's really not, well, I've got my career and then I've got, my family and this over here. It's more blended than that, and it includes, the professional pursuits. I've always been an advocate of learning and self-development, so the relationships that I built took me into being able to co-author some books and to be able to speak globally at conferences and teach at different universities, and a lot of volunteer leadership positions. Linda knows, Donna knows, as we share being on the Illinois Tech Stewart School of Business board, but great relationships and a way to get you kind of outside of this day-to-day responsibility and expand your universe. And then, of course, family, personal passions, and healthy living. So as I look at life, I love the idea, and of course, you all would be very familiar with portfolio mentality. Looking at these different aspects and how they all work together. We're living in a really interesting time, as you know, and you read and you hear and you experience massive disruption that is brought on. We're calling it, the fourth industrial revolution. So, where technologies, this isn't the first time it's happened in history, but it's the third or the fourth. New communication technologies, new sources of energy, and new modes of mobility all collide to create an entirely new platform on which to do business. So we're now in we had steam, and then we had electricity, and then we had digitization, and now we have interconnected platforms. So so it's a really, really interesting time, and we have the pleasure of being caught in it and experiencing it. It does create some uncertainty for us. We have a whole new economy. We have jobs, that you're reading about. Half of the jobs are going to be, that we know today will be gone in 10 years, and there'll be a whole new set of skill sets that are required. Create some agitation and concern. We're in the midst of transformational change, so businesses that were in business and at the top of the charts, half of them in the last 15 years have disappeared because they weren't able to adapt, change quick enough while other companies came on board. And of course, we have all the stress associated with all of this, because our work is our, among other things, right? It's a social intervention, it's an intellectual stimulation, it's an opportunity to give back. It's also our income bucket. So as we think about the fact that a third of our life is spent doing this, 90,000 hours of your life, and we're really interconnected. So we're online all the time, and you want to make sure that you're happy and that you're doing what you love to do. So as Linda asked me to come and talk a little bit, I thought about, well, what are the survival skills? What are the things that help you thrive even in really dynamic times? And some of them that I have helped me and I think about are this idea of blending in your life, the idea of maintaining relevance because things are constantly moving, how important partnerships are and relationships, resilience, and of course gratitude. So when I didn't create the title Portfolio Life. It's a book by David Cobbett. But I thought it was really, really interesting. It was the first time that I had really thought about framing up, all that you do and who you are in this way. So as you saw when I gave you my little overview on my bio, I put it into these different buckets. And I'd like you to take a minute, there's a piece of paper and a pen, and just think about these different areas and just jot yourself down a few notes about your life. And maybe not all the buckets are filled, or maybe some of them are bigger pieces of the pie than others. But think about how this might apply to you. I don't know, a visual had kept coming to me about distilling, that you're doing all this stuff, but somehow, in the cycle of life, it's all distilling down again into sort of the essence of you and what's important and what your priorities are. I looked at distilling, I looked at reduction, in the cooking sense, but I thought this was quite nice, the word distillere, meaning to trickle down from the Latin. I'm going to pick on Donna for a minute. I loved LinkedIn, by the way. You can go online and you can learn all this really, really great stuff. And when I read her first introductory statement, I was feeling and I was seeing this idea of portfolio life, right there, kind of coming out in your summary. And I wondered if you would just share a little bit what you wrote down and kind of how this has worked for you.
So as far as one thing I think that kind of resonates in my life is I always feel like I've gravitated to whatever I felt like was a good opportunity. I wasn't afraid. Like when I came to Chicago, I did not know a single soul here. My parents drove me from Lincoln, Nebraska, and I got in a U-Haul truck with 3 guys that I met in an interview 4 months prior. And we all just like,
We're gone.
we're gone. Let's see what happens. So I've obviously have been fortunate to meet a lot of great people along the way, and at work, a lot of my life around work and growing and development was always centered around the people that I either serviced on the phone. I always felt like I was able to learn from people around me constantly, which just kind of kept me inspired and motivated.
Absolutely, and that really came out, and also, this idea of continuous learning. And I think that's one of those skill sets that really helps us, let alone in these kind of tumultuous times, and really fast-changing times. But, you learn from everyone. You also learn how much you don't know every time you learn something. So it's a little bit. But I also put in a visual because this is what I think of as blending versus, we've got these little pieces and they're all segmented and, by themselves. And I think the power, the real power of this portfolio of life is how everything blends together to create something that's greater than the parts. Thank you. I know that was a surprise. So one of the things that we find out, as we dive into like the business models, and we look at all different ways that we can grow a business or introduce a new product line or enhance our client relationships. When you talk about relevance, right? It's really all about the people. So I just took this statistic, and it's showing that in this environment that we're working in, by far the most money is spent on the people resource when you think about benefits and training and salaries and all of that. So to the extent that we can move the needle even a little bit in terms of people productivity, engagement, and happiness, you really are going to have far greater repercussions throughout the whole organization in terms of what the business results are going to be. So for me, it's one of the things that makes the space that I'm in and the work that I do really exciting, because it's all about helping people work at their best and enhancing their lives, because that comes back around in spades. There's a lot of research about disengagement in the workplace, like some ridiculous amount, like 75% of people are moderately engaged in what they do, and they kind of come to work and they're half present and they go home. And imagine if you could move the needle and it could be 75% of the people were completely engaged in what they were doing at the office and the contribution that they were making. So when I think about workplace, it used to be, we thought about the physical, the built environment. We used to think about the building and what was happening in it. But today it's really much more encompassing than that. It's also the information environment, so the tools that we use to get the work done, and it's also the social environment. Why would we can work from anywhere. Why would we come to the office? What are the reasons? Who are our colleagues? How do we collaborate? Can we be more inventive, and can we be successful? And what are the things that we do here that bring us home? So workplace management is the management of all the resources needed to maximize human productivity through the design and maintenance of appropriate, effective, and economical workplace experiences. We're going to talk about experience in a little bit, that align to strategic business objectives and support people doing their best work every day, no matter where they are. Now, Linda told me that we've kind of got a representation of a lot of different areas in the company. Anybody from IT in the room? Human resources? Excellent. Sales and marketing? All right. Management, leadership? Excellent. And some of these other things fall under security, design, fall under others. But what's really great, when I was so excited when Linda told me about this group, because the research shows today that having a cross-disciplinary perspective, having a cross-disciplinary leadership team or any kind of a team actually expands the view and creates better solutions than having everybody sort of thinking in the same, in the same box. So it's really fantastic that you are all here kind of learning and sharing and absorbing the opportunities that come your way through these presentations. Business 101, right? It's always back to the big question, what are we trying to achieve? And that's in life and in business as well. And so when we talk about moving the needle on the people factor, it's also tied back to, what are we trying to do from a business perspective. So the strategic management of the workplace is really about two things: how to generate a competitive advantage and how to deliver that amazing experience every single day consistently and making every second count. So we take 3 organizations, right? And each company has similar products and similar resources, and they use them pretty much in the same way. How much share would you expect each one to have? Equal, right? But what if one company is smarter at utilizing its resources, or does a better job of utilizing its resources? All of a sudden, they're going to have a different market share. And so this is, kind of the thinking behind how each one of you contribute to the workplace environment and the culture here and the results and the output. So the competitive advantage is a condition that puts a company in a favorable or superior position. So can really the workplace be a tool to help a business achieve what it needs to achieve? Can you think of different ways that the culture, the people, the whole experience that you have here contribute to the success and to your own personal satisfaction? How about things like attracting and retaining talent? better people you have, better results you're going to get, better your bonuses are going to be. Happy at home, happy at work. Fosters innovation, creating new products, enhanced levels of performance, allowing money that's always finite to go into the things that are really important, and supporting the happiness and health and well-being of the people that work here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about experience, because that's another, it's almost like a buzzword today. You know, what's the experience that we're going to have? And there's some really interesting things that are happening. You know, an experience is, it leaves an impression, for good or bad, or excitement or not. It is generated by the senses, all this information that's coming in from your senses, but then it triggers an emotional response, literally, in your brain. And the other thing is that experiences are very personal. So you might react to it one way, and you might react to it to another way. So we want to look at this. And because we have so much information coming at us, and we are getting trained, you know, through companies like Amazon to expect a certain service level and a certain response level and a certain wow factor. I can get it in a day. I don't have to pay any shipping costs. So on the consumer side, there's this merger between the consumer side and the business side, right? And top brands are seeking to engage a strong emotional response around the brand. And they're talking about love. They want you to love the brand. That's what we want. And we have these expectations that are being set by companies who do things very, very well, and they don't have to be in your sector. We have this cross-pollination that's happening. And we want to be able to experience it day after day after day, because once our expectations are set, we don't want to be disappointed. Unfortunately, the wow factor doesn't last forever, so you have to kind of keep building and creating and improving on those experiences. But what you want, obviously, is a memory that stays with you. So in the new world of workplace, it's about designing and delivering a multifaceted, minute-by-minute, multi-sensory experience that delivers on a number of business-driven missions and creates an emotional response. For example, when I was growing up in Southern California, when you went to Disneyland, you literally got a book of tickets. There were yellow ones and blue ones and pink ones and red ones, and you got maybe 10 yellow ones, and they were for like the older rides, and then you got maybe 5 blue ones, and they were for sort of mid-cool rides, and then maybe you only got 3 red ones for the really cool stuff. So you were going through the park, and you had to decide, you know, where were you going to spend your time and how you were going to, you know, you could only go on the certain ones at a certain time, you know, with a certain ticket, and then your book was up. And then Disney kind of got smart, and then they said, well, you know, every once in a while, just to pull people into the park, if you don't get a ticket book, you got a red band on your wrist. And when you got the red band, you got to go on any ride as many times as you wanted throughout the day. So it was like a ski pass, all day, all lift. And that was kind of a cool innovation for them. But the parks got so crowded, and then they were getting the feedback from their customer and the customer experience that waiting in lines for 2 hours, not being able to get to the everything because you were spending so much time waiting, caused them to create these seamless interfaces. Now you get a band, and you get an app on your phone, and you can walk up to any ride and any concession and any store, and you can just tap, and it automatically charges. You don't have to carry money. You don't have to have a credit card, and you can book on your app. You can book which rides you want to be where, so that you don't have to wait in line. You can, instead of waiting in line for 2 hours, you can go have lunch, and then you go like, now it's time for us to come back, and then you have priority in line. So they really began to think about what the pain points were, and then they solved for that in a kind of a creative way, and they created a seamless interface and a direct customer benefit. But they also gave themselves a gold mine of information. So think about how much information they have about every single customer that's moving through the park. They know what's important, they know where they are, they know what kind of rides they want to go on, they know how much money that they spend on what for whom. And so holistically, and then the information obviously helps inform the decision making about what's next in terms of their experience and the wow factor. So this is what technology, all these technology advances are allowing us to do. So on the business side, it's kind of the same thing when you're developing a unique experience. All these different factors are going into what the future experience is going to look like. This is not only for employees, but for clients. And there's a lot of thought that goes into the journey. What happens when you're going from here to there? Linda knows this. What technologies will support the work that has to be done and support the lifestyles that we have now? I kind of like the boat personally. And which technologies will help support our movements as we move to different offices or contact clients that are in different parts of the world or open up offices in different parts of the world. And also what needs filtering, because we have so much information. What's important, also becomes important. So does the work, and I would say place, you don't even have to say work, do the places where you spend your time at home and at work, are they resilient? Do they allow you to ebb and flow, flex to the tasks that need to be done with the people that you need to do them with? I wanted to talk a little bit about resilience. I don't, have any of you seen the movie A Good Year with Russell Crowe? It's a romantic comedy. Some of you might not like it, but there's one scene where Uncle Henry and Max are having a tennis match, and Max loses, and he throws his tennis racket across the court, and he's kind of stomping around, and Uncle Henry says, "Max, what's wrong with you? You should be celebrating." And Max says, "Well, why would I celebrate? I lost." And Uncle Henry says, "You'll come to see that a man learns nothing from winning. The act of losing, however, can elicit great wisdom, not the least of which is how much more enjoyable it is to win. It's inevitable to lose now and again. The trick is, let's just not make a habit of it." One of my favorite quotes about resilience, because it's really a mindset about the positives and the negatives that happen in life and how you respond to them. So resilience, there's personal resilience, there's workplace resilience. Personal resilience has to do with these attitudes and skills, that the capacity to respond to the pressures of daily life. And it's all about self-awareness, mindfulness, self-care, positive relationships, and purpose. And then the workplace, creating a structure to support that resilience. That you have places to go, you have colleagues to be with, you're doing good work, you have purpose, and you're being rewarded for it. And the research also says, resilience, you deal with resilience when you can look at challenges and change as an opportunity to learn. This is something that's exciting. That on the control side, having a sense that you can influence your outcomes. And control is a little tricky because obviously there's things in life we cannot control no matter how hard you want to. There's going to be those things, but also knowing and understanding what you can control and what you can't control, and finding the good in it. And then commitment is hugely powerful, being engaged and seeing your life as interesting and meaningful. So this has always been true, but maybe more so now than ever. In business and in life, success hinges on making partnerships work. So a lot of what I'm seeing, you might see it too, is the idea of business partnerships and collaborations. I mean, it's taken on a whole new meaning at Illinois Tech. I mean, academic is partnering with entrepreneurs and business leaders. At UI Labs, they've brought together all different kinds of corporations that are looking at new technologies of 3D printing to see how this new technology can be applied. In our daily lives, we're looking at partnerships and friendships that enhance our lives and take us outside of our comfort zone into new places where we've never been. So I love that quote. And kind of circling back, so who has responsibility for what? And I would argue that every single person in the room, you have a different point of view, a different perspective. You come with different unique skill sets and expertise. And when those ideas come into a room together, as I said, you have actually a more powerful outcome. Even though you do need a leader to guide and make these partnerships work, it's I think the cross-disciplinary theme is something that we're seeing a lot. So who should be involved? And what's the benefit of a multidisciplinary point of view? All the research would say hugely powerful, and that there's lots of ways that you can employ this and deploy it in your own life and in the work that you do. So gratitude is the #1 key to happiness, which I think is, again, when you talk about resilience and overcoming obstacles and dealing with the stresses of life and kind of finding your path forward, being able to look and focus on the positives and what you're grateful for in each and every thing that's going on in your life is huge. Other things, keys to happiness: be present. Talked a little bit about that. Find resilience. We talked about that. Managing your energy. Don't sweat the small stuff. Focus on the things that are really important. Do nothing. This is where creativity comes in. Sometimes when you do break away from the being online and accessible all the time, that's when your mind rests and then things begin to percolate up. So it has a lot to do with creativity. Treating yourself well, forgiveness, failures, successes, it's all part of the cycle of life, and to the extent that you can be easy on yourself and parlay it to something better is great. Venture outside your comfort zone and show compassion outwardly, because people around you are also going through their own thing. So I wanted to finish with a poem. I thought I'd finish, I was an English major as an undergraduate, so I happen to love language. And I was lucky enough to see Joy Harjo, who is our U.S. Poet Laureate, and she presented this poem, which I thought was beautiful. It's called The Eagle Poem. To pray, you open yourself to the sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know that there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments steadily growing, and in languages that aren't even always sound, but other circles of motion, like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle, rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty. Thank you so much.